We could have just watched somebody die, but we're going to keep playing the game. That's what the NFL wanted to do. And it was the Players Union, it was the NFL Players Association that actually stopped the game from continuing.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Last week, we had people were hit in the face with safety issues on the job and workers' ability to stand up to it. And I'm talking about Damar Hamlin with the NFL. He was hit and just collapsed with a heart attack and nearly died on live TV. And it was not the NFL, the bosses, the good graces of the capitalists that said, we're going to cancel this game, and because somebody almost died, or it could have potentially at that time, there was, all the reason in the world to believe that Damar Hamlin could have died later on in the night. So we could have just watched somebody die, but we're going to keep playing the game. That's what the NFL wanted to do. And yet it was the Players Union, it was the NFL Players Association that actually stopped the game from happening, stopped the game from continuing. And there is just not enough understanding of that in the popular consciousness, that it was not the bosses that stopped this game. It was not the owners. It was not the league. It was the players. And it was their union that said, no, we as workers have experienced a traumatic event, and we are going to the hospital with him. We're not playing this game anymore. And that is not because they were able to do that, not because, football players are, of course football players are unique, but they were able to do that because they were organized. Not because of their uniqueness, but because of their organizedness. Because seeing somebody on the job die or almost die or have a heart attack on the job, that's not something that no one else goes through. In fact, there was whenever this happened, there was this huge thread of people explaining similar things that happened to them. Joshua P. Hill on Twitter compiled a thread of all of this stuff, of people replying with similar things happening to them. And a coworker had chest pains. One of the front office ladies stood by the front door of our huge building so the EMS could be let in immediately. Afterward, her boss said, no one asked you to do that, so that 20 minutes was your lunch break.
Oh my God.
Another one, my lead got hit in a drive-by about 10 years ago, and around 3/4 of the crew left, and the manager asked the remainder of us if we could still hit our goals for the day. I work in the restaurant industry, and just a couple weeks ago during lunch service, we had a guest fall with a do not resuscitate bracelet on. The dining area was completely full, and my staff never stopped work while maintaining the attention of the guest eating. The guest passed away.
Good Lord.
That happened at a place I worked at. I performed the CPR. I was given 20 minutes to collect myself and then had to get back on the line to cook. I work for USPS, and when one of my coworkers died at the office while on duty last year, they closed for only an hour and opened the store right back up. It was appalling. And so, this happens, and the only way to stop it from happening is to be organized like these NFL players are, because it was the NFL Players Union that told the league, we're not working anymore. We're not, that's labor. The game is labor. We're not working anymore because of this. And it's just such a, Adam, you said that you were actually watching it live as it happened.
Yeah. It just so happened I flipped on the game Monday night and was watching, I'm not like such a huge football fan that I'm glued to every Monday Night Football either. So, it was kind of unusual that I just happened to be glued to it this particular game. Saw it happen and didn't look unusual. It looked like an ordinary tackle. And I can't even remember if I could clearly see live the collapse, but it was pretty shortly after that you could see from the way the other players on the field were reacting how serious it was. And I tell you, just my heart sank. I got a real sick feeling in my stomach because I thought I was watching a man die on TV.
Yeah.
It was hard to turn away. And it was had me shook, and I was just watching from my couch in Alabama. I can only imagine
that being your friend, somebody that you work with every single day, practice with, sweat with.
And you know, you started to see the cameras panning to the players, and you saw players with tears in their eyes, players crying, players on their knees praying. It was scary. It was scary, and you know, my daughter even walked in and was scared at what was happening, and you know, we talked about it, and it just, God, it was a sickening, just sickening, and to think that they were going to go out and just try to play a game after that. You know, the minutes kept going on, and it was unclear what was happening. They weren't, you know, again, you know, as we're watching this live, they weren't really saying what was happening. You could just see from the reactions of the people on the field that something very, very, very serious was happening. And then at one point, of course, an ambulance comes out on the field. But at one point, a 5-minute warm-up period starts being discussed. I can't remember if it was Troy Aikman or Joe Buck, but one of those two guys in the booth mentioned something about we're getting word from the league about a 5-minute warm-up period. You even saw a couple players start to throw a ball back and forth. And, I mean, these guys looked like they were just totally... Some of them looked like they were in shock. Some of them looked like they were just emotionally distraught. So you had a couple who looked like they were trying to go through the motions of getting ready. But it was pretty quick after you heard that announcement in this like shift towards warming up that both coaches walked out onto the field, talked to the referees, and then everybody went inside. And that was it. And you pointed me to an article by Dave Zirin, or Zirin. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name there, but I've been reading his stuff for a very long time. If you're interested at all in sports and you're the type of person who likes our show, then you should probably read Dave. He is the sports writer for The Nation, and he does have a very good article out. The NFL just showed the world what it thinks of its players. And something he wrote that I wanted to just pull out is that, and just reiterate your point earlier, it's important to note that the league only called the game after player reps from both teams contacted the union, the NFLPA, which informed the league that the game was done. This was a workplace action. Participants exercised their collective power and demanded that their trauma, their grief, their very humanity be recognized. So I really like that he included that. Now, he doesn't mince words. He believes that Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, should be fired immediately for this. And he brings up pretty damning evidence in terms of his record. Of course, he's been the commissioner as we've had violence against women involving players. We've seen Colin Kaepernick get blackballed from the NFL. We've seen just more and more and more research coming out about the brain injuries that these guys are getting from playing this game, and the settlements that are starting to happen, and lawsuits that are starting to happen. It's, you know, so one thing that Dave wrote in his article is that Roger Goodell is a, quote, world-class flat catcher, a human meat shield taking arrows from the press while the owners reside in shadows counting their fortunes. And that line stood out as well, because that's always been the thing with the NFL commissioner. Most of the owners do not like the limelight. You have your Jerry Jones of the world, you know, who owns the Cowboys and does want to be on TV every day. But most of them don't, right? They prefer to be behind the scenes, making a profit off of these guys putting their body on the line.
Right.
And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to mention in reference to this is that I've heard folks folks have talked to me before, like, Adam, you're always complaining about millionaires and billionaires, and yet you're supporting, these professional athletes. What gives? And I think it's important to make that distinction that these people are workers. They are highly compensated workers. They're compensated so much so that some of them do become capitalists on their own, right? Tom Brady, LeBron James, these type of guys, the elites of the elites are making such, record amounts of money and have a brand that they can convert into capital. But that doesn't change the fact that when they go out there and they play this football game, when they practice, when they take care of their bodies and go to the gym every day in the workout room, they are performing labor. Right. It is a highly specialized form of labor, and therefore they get a pretty high amount of compensation for it. The flip side to it is, because it is such a highly specialized form of labor, it is incredibly profitable. These guys go out there, risk their lives, beat up each other, leave with injuries often impacting the rest of their lives. Typically, they're shaving years off their life to play this game and to make this money. And meanwhile, you have owners of the franchises making billions. You have the NFL itself as an entity and its leadership, like Roger Goodell, making tons of money. So I'm not mad about NFL players or NBA players or Major League Baseball players. I'm not mad that they're making millions necessarily. I don't know that what they're doing is so much more valuable than the labor that most working class people are doing. But the truth is, this industry is highly profitable. And frankly, entertainment is one of the last things America has left. America doesn't really make much anymore. So entertainment is like one of our biggest exports and one of our biggest industries. And that includes sports. And so it's just, to me, as a working class person, I support the athletes because I recognize that what they're doing is a form of labor. They are working. They are selling their time and their body in exchange for a salary. If they're lucky, it's quite a generous salary, and they'll be okay for the rest of their life. But that's not all of them. By any means, the average player is not leaving wealthy. They're lasting a couple of years. They get used up and spit out.
Yeah.
And they just have to hope they have enough that they made from that little experience to move on to the next stage of their life, and hope that they have the health and the presence of mind left to be able to live a good life after football.
Right.
Football is unique because of the brutality of it, because of the plantation style optics of it, frankly. I mean, here's 32, almost all of them white billionaire men owning these franchises, sending out a team that is 70% black to go put their bodies on the line in this brutal physical sport.
Right.
So I will always stand with the players against the owners and against the leagues. I commend the players for being unionized and being organized. I commend the players for taking a step Monday night and refusing to play, because there should not have been any playing after that. You could tell these folks just experienced trauma. They they watched as one of their friends and coworkers nearly died in front of them and millions of people. To expect them to be able to just flip a switch and in 5 minutes go back out there,
right,
and go back to work. And oh, by the way, going back to work means someone else might get hurt too. You might get hurt too. Right. This, your brother may not make it home to his family, but hey, we got a game to finish. Right. It was. I know there's been a lot of back and forth in the days since then. I have not followed super closely about just who said what. I think the NFL is disputing that they ever declared there would be a 5-minute warm-up period. It's my understanding Roger Goodell is claiming he didn't say that. ESPN is saying, well, we didn't make this up.
Right.
Somebody told our people
Right.
that's what was happening. Someone told that to the players, right? Because, Joe Burrow didn't grab a football and decide to start warming up unless someone said something to him. I don't think. So
Right.
I don't know. We'll see what all the facts are when they come out. But at the end of the day, it was just a shocking thing to see. And it's a good reminder of how dangerous that sport is. But it's also a good reminder of how dangerous work can be for so many people. Just this week, there was a report of a construction worker here in Huntsville who fell to his death.
Yeah.
And, no one on ESPN is going to talk about him. I'm grateful that someone in the local media was even willing to do that story. Because how many folks die on the job, get hurt on the job, lose limbs on the job without any fanfare, without any coverage, without any consequences for those responsible. Right. So I wish all the best to Damar Hamlin's family and himself and to the players. And I hope that folks did learn from this example that at the end of the day, the employers put profit above people. That includes you. No matter how valuable you think you are, no matter how good of a worker you are, no matter how good of a relationship you think you have with management, at the end of the day, profits come before people. And the only way to overcome that is through the collective power of organizing with your fellow workers. The NFL players demonstrated that on Monday night, just as the ownership demonstrated their callousness.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.